Rain slammed against the tall glass windows of the Kingsley mansion as Evelyn stood barefoot in the marble hallway, her wedding dress soaked and torn. The guests had already left, whispering, judging, pitying. Her father, Richard Kingsley, stood before her with his hand still trembling from the slap he'd just delivered. "You'll do as I say," he hissed, his breath thick with rage and shame. The white orchids behind him, meant to decorate her wedding day, now looked like funeral flowers. Evelyn's chest rose and fell as she struggled to breathe. "You sold me to him," she whispered, "to a man twice my age, just to save his company?" Her eyes darted toward the staircase, where her father's mistress, Celeste, and her smug teenage son, Adrian, watched from above. Celeste's lips curved into a satisfied smile. Adrian tilted his head, whispering, "Guess I'm the favorite now." Evelyn's voice broke, raw and trembling. "You gave away your daughter for her child." Richard's eyes flinched, but only for a second. "You were always too weak to lead," he said coldly. "At least Adrian can carry the Kingsley name with pride." And that was when something inside Evelyn shattered. Outside, thunder cracked as Evelyn's mother's portrait glared down from the staircase wall. That painting was the only thing left untouched by Celeste, the mistress who had slowly replaced her mother in every possible way. Evelyn's mother had built the Kingsley brand with her husband, a luxury conglomerate known worldwide for its jewelry empire. But after her death, Richard fell into Celeste's trap, a woman who had once been the company's marketing intern. Evelyn could still remember the day Celeste arrived, all perfume and fake laughter, wearing ambition like silk. Slowly, Celeste took everything: her mother's position, her father's loyalty, even her family home. Now, Celeste's son Adrian was treated as the future heir. Evelyn had tried to ignore it, to be patient, to believe her father still loved her deep down. But today, as she stood alone in her ruined wedding dress, patience was meaningless. "You've ruined my life," Evelyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard turned away, his face hardening. "No," he muttered. "I saved it." Then he walked out, his footsteps echoing like gunshots in the hall. Celeste's laughter followed him, low and poisonous. Hours later, Evelyn found herself on the empty terrace overlooking the city lights. The cold rain blurred the skyline, and the diamond ring, still on her finger, cut into her skin. Her wedding had been called off because the groom, the powerful CEO of a rival company, had learned the Kingsleys were in financial ruin. He'd humiliated her in front of everyone, announcing that he'd rather marry Adrian's stepsister than a fallen heiress. Evelyn had stood frozen, her world spinning, while her father's silence screamed louder than any defense. That was the moment she understood. Her humiliation was part of the deal. Her father had traded her dignity for Celeste's son's future. The cold wind hit her face like shards of glass. "If this is what family means," she whispered to the storm, "then I want no part of it." The city below glowed like molten gold. Money, power, betrayal. All of it meaningless now. She stepped closer to the edge, her tears blending with the rain. A flash of lightning cut across the clouds, and then darkness. When Evelyn opened her eyes, she was surrounded by soft morning light. Her heart pounded. The rain was gone. She sat up and froze. Her body felt lighter. The air smelled different. Her hands, once scarred from the broken glass of that night, were smooth again. A soft knock on the door made her heart stop. "Miss Evelyn, your father's waiting. You'll be late for the gala." It was their old maid, Anna. Alive. But Anna had died years ago. Evelyn stumbled to the mirror. The reflection staring back was her younger self, 18 years old, before everything fell apart. "No," she whispered. "This can't be real." But then she saw the headline on her phone. Kingsley Enterprises welcomes new marketing intern, Celeste Grant. The same day the woman entered their lives.
Evelyn's pulse raced. She'd been reborn, sent back to the very beginning, back before her father's betrayal, back before she lost everything. Her throat tightened. "Then this time," she said quietly, "I won't be the one sacrificed." As she dressed for the gala that night, Evelyn moved like a ghost who already knew the future. She knew every lie Celeste would tell, every tear she'd fake, every choice her father would make to destroy her. But this time, she wouldn't play the naive daughter begging for love. She'd smile, she'd listen, she'd learn, and she'd burn their empire from the inside. The silk gown shimmered under the chandelier, her reflection calm and unreadable. Downstairs, laughter echoed as her father entertained his guests. Evelyn's gaze fell on the young man standing alone by the piano, the rebel heir of the rival family, Damien Wolfe. In her past life, she had been told to stay away from him. But she remembered the truth now. Damien had tried to warn her. He'd been the only one who saw through the lies. And this time, she'd listen. As their eyes met across the crowded room, a slow, knowing smile touched her lips. Let them think I'm still the weak one. Let them laugh. Because Evelyn Kingsley had returned from the ashes, and she was going to watch them fall. The gala shimmered with crystal lights, champagne laughter, and hidden venom. Evelyn descended the staircase, her movements graceful, deliberate. She had walked this night once before, blind, naive, believing her father's smiles were love and Celeste's kindness was genuine. But now, every detail felt like a trap she already knew how to disarm. Celeste stood near the piano, her red silk dress hugging her curves like power itself. The woman looked younger than she remembered, her charm freshly sharpened, her eyes calculating behind mascaraed lashes. Guests surrounded her, drawn by her warmth, unaware of the poison behind her smile. Richard Kingsley beamed beside her, introducing her as the woman who saved his life after tragedy. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She could almost hear the ghost of her mother's laughter echoing through the marble hall. The woman Celeste had erased from every frame, every memory. Evelyn held her champagne glass tightly. "You look pale, sweetheart," Celeste cooed, touching her shoulder with fake concern. Evelyn turned, her eyes calm but cutting. "Just remembering who used to stand where you're standing," she said softly. The smile froze on Celeste's lips. The battle had quietly begun. The evening dragged on with polite smiles and whispered politics. Evelyn floated among the elite like a phantom, observing alliances form and favors traded. Every powerful man in that room was somehow connected to her family's empire. Men her father trusted, men who would later betray him. Her gaze drifted to the corner where Damien Wolfe stood, hands in his pockets, watching everything. In her past life, she had ignored him, believing her father's warning that the wolves were ruthless. But now she remembered differently, how Damien had exposed a scandal that could have saved her, if only she had listened. She approached him this time, her steps steady. "You're staring," she said, her voice cool. Damien's lips curved into a half-smile. "Only at people who look like they've come back from the dead." Evelyn froze for a second. Did he sense something? Or was it instinct? "You don't belong in their cage," he said quietly. "But maybe you already know that." Before she could answer, her father's voice boomed across the hall, summoning her to his side. The game of masks had resumed.
Richard Kingsley introduced Evelyn to a group of investors, men who controlled the fate of their upcoming merger. "My daughter will soon be taking a more public role," he said proudly. It was a lie. In the last life, he'd said the same words before stripping her of every position. The memory stung, but Evelyn smiled anyway, graceful as a queen. "I look forward to it," she replied, her tone polite but edged with quiet steel. Celeste stood beside her, hand resting possessively on Richard's arm. Evelyn noticed how Celeste kept interrupting him, subtle, gentle, but constant, slowly controlling the conversation, guiding his thoughts. It was how she'd done it before. Every smile was a hook, every word was a seed of influence. But this time, Evelyn was watching. "Mrs. Grant," she said suddenly, using Celeste's maiden name before she married her father years later, "your insights about marketing sound brilliant. Perhaps we could schedule a private chat before you get too busy." Celeste blinked, startled. "Of course," she said slowly, eyes narrowing. Evelyn's sweet smile didn't reach her eyes. "Good," she thought. "Be curious. It'll make your fall faster."
When the last guest left, the mansion fell into quiet luxury. The smell of roses and spilled wine lingered in the air. Evelyn slipped into her mother's old study, a room that Celeste would soon redecorate into her own office. The bookshelves still smelled like old paper and lavender. On the desk sat her mother's worn journal, untouched. She opened it, fingers trembling. Inside were sketches, designs for jewelry collections never released, notes about board meetings, hints of tension between her parents before her death, then a final entry. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident." Evelyn's heart stopped. In her first life, her mother's death was ruled a car accident on a rainy night. But what if it wasn't? She turned the page, finding a single photograph tucked inside, Celeste and her mother at a company retreat, months before the crash. Evelyn stared at Celeste's smile. Too perfect, too aware. Her pulse quickened. "You took everything from her, but this time I'll take everything from you." Behind her, the floor creaked softly. She turned. No one was there, but she could feel it. Someone had been watching. Later that night, Evelyn stood by her bedroom window, city lights reflecting in her eyes. She had pieces of a puzzle, but not the whole picture yet. In her past life, she had wasted years trying to earn love. In this one, she'd spend every breath uncovering the truth. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Be careful what you dig for, Evelyn." Her stomach tightened. She looked around, heart pounding. Who knew she had been in the study? Was it Celeste, or someone else entirely? A faint sound made her glance outside. Across the street, a black car idled, headlights off. For a brief second, she saw the outline of a man, watching the mansion. Damian Wolf's warning echoed in her mind. "You don't belong in their cage." Evelyn's reflection stared back at her in the glass, calm, poised, but burning from within. "You're right," she whispered to the night. "But I built this cage, and now I'll make it collapse." The rain began again, softly tapping the glass like an omen. In the house below, Celeste smiled in her sleep, unaware that her first mistake had already been made. Morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Kingsley Tower, gleaming across the marble floors of the company's headquarters. Evelyn walked through the lobby, her heels clicking softly, her confidence quiet but commanding. Around her, employees moved briskly, unaware that this young heiress had lived this day once before. The day Celeste Grant, now just a new marketing intern, first stepped into their world. Evelyn knew every word Celeste would say, every impression she'd try to make. The elevator chimed. She turned, and there she was, Celeste. Her beauty understated, her ambition hidden behind shy smiles. "You must be Miss Kingsley," she said, extending her hand. Evelyn shook it lightly, feeling a chill run through her veins. "Welcome to Kingsley Enterprises," she replied smoothly. Their eyes met, two women pretending to be harmless. "I hope to learn a lot here," Celeste said. "Oh, you will,"
Evelyn whispered under her breath. More than you ever imagined. When Celeste turned away, Evelyn's smile vanished. This time, she would not be caught off guard. She would watch, record, and wait for the perfect moment to pull the thread that would unravel Celeste's entire web. By afternoon, Evelyn sat in the executive lounge reviewing documents. Her father was in a meeting upstairs, and Celeste, still pretending to be just another intern, was fetching coffee for the department heads. Evelyn had planted a tiny camera pen on her desk earlier, disguised as a gift for Celeste's first day. It was recording every whisper, every expression. Her assistant, Nadia, walked in quietly. "Miss Kingsley," she murmured, "your father asked for the quarterly reports." Evelyn nodded, her mind elsewhere. "Nadia," she said softly, "you've been here for years, haven't you?" The woman hesitated, then nodded. "Do you remember my mother?" A pause. "She was kind," Nadia said finally. "Too kind for this place." Evelyn's eyes darkened. "And Celeste?" Nadia glanced toward the hallway. "Smart? Dangerous. She knew things no intern should have known." Evelyn leaned forward. "Like what?" Nadia lowered her voice. "Boardroom secrets, passwords, financial leaks." It was like she already had access. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "Who gave it to her?" Nadia hesitated. "Your father." Evelyn sat back slowly, her chest tightening. So it had begun even earlier than she thought. That evening, Evelyn joined her father for dinner in his private suite overlooking the city. He poured 2 glasses of wine, his smile distant. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "Still adjusting?" She studied him, the man who once threw her away like a broken toy. "Just observing," she replied. "People change fast in this company." Richard chuckled. "You sound like your mother, always suspicious." Evelyn tilted her head. "And you sound like a man who trusts too easily." He froze, glass halfway to his lips. "What's that supposed to mean?" She smiled faintly. "Only that your new intern seems impressive. She already knows how to charm the board." He shrugged, feigning indifference. "She's bright. I see potential." "You always do," Evelyn murmured. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Richard sighed. "Evelyn, you're my daughter. I want you to learn from the best. Celeste's got a spark you could use." The irony almost made her laugh. "I'll keep an eye on her," she said softly. He nodded, unaware that his words had just sealed Celeste's fate. 2 days later, Evelyn's plan began to move. She invited Celeste to lunch at a high-end cafe near the harbor, a place where cameras couldn't be avoided. Celeste arrived wearing pastel tones and a smile that could disarm anyone. "I didn't think the boss's daughter would notice me this soon," she teased. Evelyn stirred her coffee slowly. "I notice people who work hard," she said, "and people who pretend to." Celeste blinked. "Excuse me?" Evelyn leaned closer, her voice calm. "You were in the restricted archives this morning. You copied files you weren't supposed to access." Celeste's smile faltered, but only for a second. "You must be mistaken," she said lightly. Evelyn tilted her phone toward her. On the screen was footage from the pen camera, Celeste scrolling through company records, copying something to a flash drive. The color drained from her face. "Relax," Evelyn whispered. "I'm not reporting you. Not yet. But from now on, you'll tell me everything you hear in those hallways, every conversation, every secret. And you'll do it with a smile." Celeste forced a nod, eyes trembling. The roles had reversed.
That night, Evelyn sat by her bedroom window, city lights flickering like restless stars. The footage from Celeste's office break-in played on her laptop, clear, undeniable. It wasn't just curiosity. Celeste had been looking at her mother's old projects. One in particular stood out. The Aurora line, a jewelry design her mother never released before her death. In her last life, Celeste had accidentally discovered the same sketches months later, using them to build her fame and secure her position beside Richard. Evelyn's fingers brushed over the screen. "Not this time," she whispered. She saved the clip, encrypted it, and sent a copy to a secure folder under a false name, just in case. Then her phone buzzed again. Another unknown text. "You're playing with fire, Kingsley. Don't forget, some flames don't die twice." Evelyn stared at the message, unease creeping into her chest. Whoever was watching her wasn't Celeste. It was someone else. Outside, thunder rumbled across the skyline. She shut her laptop and whispered into the dark, then let it burn. Because she wasn't afraid of fire anymore. She was the fire.
The Kingsley Gala returned to the headlines within weeks, this time for a partnership that promised to save the empire, on paper. Beneath the glittering chandeliers of the city's Grand Orium Hotel, Evelyn watched her father shake hands with investors whose smiles hid daggers. The event was meant to announce a new collaboration with Wolf International, led by the very man her father considered a threat, Damien Wolf. Cameras flashed as journalists swarmed, capturing the perfect picture of a powerful alliance. But Evelyn knew better. In her past life, this same deal had been the spark that burned everything down. Damien had backed out at the last moment after discovering Kingsley's hidden debts. Debts Celeste had secretly deepened by siphoning funds through offshore accounts. Now, as she moved through the glitter and laughter, Evelyn's mission was clear. Uncover those accounts before Celeste buried the evidence again. Her gown shimmered like silver fire, her calm presence masking the storm within. Damien's gaze found hers across the crowd, steady, knowing, unreadable. He raised his glass slightly in silent acknowledgement. The last time they'd met at an event like this, she'd turned away. This time, she didn't.
When the speeches ended and the lights dimmed for dinner, Evelyn slipped out to the balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool, heavy with the scent of rain and money. Damien joined her moments later, his dark suit sharp against the skyline. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said. "Neither should you," she replied. He smirked. "You always did like breaking rules." Evelyn's heart flickered. He didn't know it, but his words belonged to another lifetime. "I've learned that rules only protect those who write them," she said quietly. Damien studied her for a moment, his gaze softening. "Something's changed in you." She met his eyes. "Maybe I finally see people for who they are." He took a sip of champagne. "And who am I?" "A man who pretends not to care," she said. "But you do." His silence confirmed it. The city lights reflected in his eyes like fractured diamonds. Before he could speak again, her phone buzzed. Another unknown message. "You're not the only one watching Celeste tonight." Evelyn's breath caught. She turned toward the ballroom and saw Celeste disappearing into a side corridor with a man in a black suit. Without hesitation, Evelyn followed. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she slipped past the guests, down the quiet hallway lit by golden sconces. Celeste and the man entered a private conference room and closed the door. Evelyn pressed against the wall, straining to listen. Through the crack, she saw the man hand Celeste a slim folder and a flash drive. "These are the accounts," he whispered. All under Richard's name, just like you asked. Evelyn's heart pounded. Accounts under her father's name? Celeste had started moving company funds already. Good, Celeste murmured, flipping through the papers. By the time he realizes what's missing, Adrian's trust fund will be overflowing. Evelyn's nails dug into her palm. She's doing it again. She lifted her phone, snapping a quick photo through the gap. Then her elbow brushed a vase. It shattered. The door swung open. Celeste froze. Evelyn! For a split second, their eyes locked. Shock, then suspicion. Sorry, I was looking for the restroom. Celeste's smile returned, thin and sharp. Of course you were, darling. But do be careful. Some doors aren't meant to be opened.
Evelyn escaped back into the crowd, her pulse racing. Damien found her within minutes, reading the panic behind her composed face. "What happened?" he asked. She glanced around, lowering her voice. "Celeste is laundering money. Again. She's already started." Damien frowned. "Do you have proof?" She hesitated. "Not enough. Yet." He handed her a card, his voice low. "There's someone I trust. A data analyst. He can trace offshore accounts if you bring him something to work with." Evelyn stared at the card, black, embossed with the wolf insignia. "Why are you helping me?" Damien's gaze softened, because the Kingsleys aren't the only ones who lost everything to lies. For a moment, the noise of the gala faded. The orchestra swelled inside as they stood beneath a cascade of golden light, two wounded souls bound by secrets. Evelyn slipped the card into her clutch. "Then we're even," she said, though they both knew they weren't. When she walked away, Damien's voice followed her softly. "Be careful, Kingsley. Wolves aren't the only predators in this city."
Later that night, Evelyn sat in her car parked outside Kingsley Tower, the city's glow bleeding through the windshield. She replayed the photo she'd taken, the folder, the flash drive, Celeste's expression of triumph. It wasn't enough for public exposure, but it was enough to start. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was a message from Adrian. "Don't think I don't see what you're doing. You'll regret crossing her." Evelyn's stomach turned cold. In her last life, Adrian had played innocent for years, pretending to be her ally. But now he was already protecting Celeste. Good, she thought. Show me your loyalty early. She looked up at Kingsley Tower, her father's empire glowing like a crown of fire against the night sky. "You think you're untouchable," she whispered, "but I'm already inside the cracks." She started the engine, determination tightening her chest. Somewhere in the shadows, a black car pulled away from the curb, following her at a distance. Evelyn didn't notice. Her mind was already on her next move, because she wasn't just planning revenge anymore. She was building an empire of her own.
Days blurred into quiet tension at Kingsley Enterprises. To outsiders, Evelyn was the perfect daughter, attending meetings, smiling through press interviews, and gracefully supporting her father's every word. But beneath that calm exterior, her mind moved like a storm. Each night, she met secretly with Damien's contact, an IT expert named Mira Holt, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. In a dim coffee shop downtown, Mira slid her a small drive. The flash drive Celeste received, I traced its encryption route. It's linked to shell accounts in the Cayman Islands, set up under your father's digital signature, but managed by her. Evelyn's jaw clenched. So, if the accounts go public, my father takes the fall. Mira nodded. Classic setup. By the time anyone realizes the transfers weren't his doing, the money's gone. Evelyn exhaled slowly, the weight pressing down on her chest. Can you stop it? Mira shook her head. No, but I can copy everything, quietly. Evelyn smiled faintly, sliding a gold bracelet across the table.
Consider that your retainer. As she left the cafe, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown message. You're moving faster this time. Impressive. Her blood ran cold. Whoever it was, they knew she'd been reborn.
That evening, Evelyn sat in her penthouse suite, staring out at the storm rolling over the city. The skyline shimmered under flashes of lightning. On the table before her were two pictures, her mother's last portrait and a new photo of Celeste and Richard at a charity event, smiling like the perfect couple. Evelyn's hand trembled as she drew a line between them. "You replaced her," she whispered, "piece by piece." Her phone vibrated again, this time a call from Damien. "You found something," he said before she could speak. "You always sound like a man who already knows the answer," she replied softly. He chuckled. "Maybe I just pay attention." She hesitated, then said, "She's framing my father. If this goes through, she'll own everything, and he'll take the fall." Damien's tone shifted. "Then don't let her. Use the leverage before she moves." Evelyn's heart beat faster. "No. If I strike too soon, she'll bury deeper. I need her to trust me first." Silence hung for a beat. "That's a dangerous game," Damien warned. Evelyn looked out the window, eyes fierce. "So is fire, but I'm done being afraid of it." The next morning, Celeste walked into Evelyn's office with that same manufactured sweetness. "I hear you're overseeing the charity auction this weekend," she said. "Your mother's old event, right? Such lovely memories." Evelyn met her gaze calmly. "Yes, I thought it was time to revive it. It meant a lot to her." Celeste's smile tightened. "And to your father," she added, sliding a folder onto the desk. "Here's a list of donors. I took the liberty of updating your contacts." Evelyn opened it and froze. Among the names was Magnus Hale, the foreign investor Celeste had used in her last life to smuggle money overseas. "Thoughtful of you," Evelyn said, forcing a smile. Celeste leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You know, Evelyn, women like us need to be strategic. The world isn't kind to us if we're naive." Evelyn met her gaze, the air between them sharp as glass. "You're right," she said softly, "which is why I learned to smile while they bleed." Celeste blinked, confused by the calm venom in her tone. As she left the office, Evelyn flipped the folder shut. The charity auction would be the perfect trap.
2 nights later, the Kingsley charity auction glittered with wealth and deceit. Velvet gowns, black tuxedos, diamond chandeliers, all masking the rot beneath the luxury. Evelyn moved through the crowd with practiced grace, shaking hands, smiling at faces she once trusted. Across the room, Damien watched her silently, one hand in his pocket. He wasn't here as a guest, he was her insurance. Mira had wired the auction's payment system to flag any suspicious transfers. Tonight, Celeste planned to sell off a fake family heirloom to Magnus Hale for an outrageous sum, a legal way to move money across borders. Evelyn let the act unfold. The cameras flashed, the bids rose. When the auctioneer finally called, "Sold!" Celeste's eyes gleamed, but before the applause ended, Evelyn stepped forward. "Actually," she said clearly, "that necklace isn't ours to sell." The room fell silent. Celeste's eyes froze. Evelyn raised a small velvet box. Inside was the real necklace, the one her mother designed. "This is the authentic piece. That," she gestured toward Celeste's sale, "is a counterfeit." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Damien stepped closer, ready to move if chaos broke.
Celeste's hand trembled on her glass. Evelyn had just drawn first blood.
After the guests dispersed in confusion, Evelyn returned to her suite, adrenaline still surging. She replayed every second in her mind, the shock on Celeste's face, the whispered gossip, the investors questioning Richard's judgment. But as she poured herself a glass of wine, her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it was a video file. When she opened it, her breath caught. The footage showed her meeting with Mira at the cafe, the flash drive exchange, her face clearly visible. The sender's caption read, "One move too early, Kingsley. Let's see how long you stay in control." Her hand shook. Whoever this was, they weren't guessing, they were tracking her. She looked out at the skyline, the storm now raging in full force. Lightning split the sky, reflecting in her eyes. "You think you can scare me?" she whispered. "You have no idea what fear looks like." She deleted the file, memorizing every detail. Tomorrow, she would find out who sent it. But tonight, she let the rage settle deep, solid, and cold. Because beneath the ashes of her old life, something fierce was awakening. And soon, someone would burn for it.
Sleep did not come easily. Evelyn lay awake long after midnight, staring at the faint reflection of city lights glimmering across the ceiling. Every sound in the penthouse felt sharper, the hum of the air system, the ticking of the clock, the soft drip of rain against glass. She replayed the video in her mind, analyzing every angle. The footage was too precise, the quality too high. Whoever filmed it wasn't an amateur. They'd used professional surveillance, someone with access, maybe even inside her circle. Her thoughts drifted to Mira, but she quickly dismissed it. Mira wouldn't risk exposure. Then another name surfaced like poison through her memory. Ethan Cross, Celeste's personal security advisor, a man Evelyn remembered from her past life as the one who carried out Celeste's quiet orders. He was methodical, loyal, and ruthless. "If he's alive again too," she whispered, sitting up sharply, "then someone else remembers." The idea chilled her. Rebirth had been her secret punishment, her second chance to rewrite destiny. But what if she wasn't the only one? The next morning, Evelyn arrived at Kingsley headquarters earlier than usual. The staff greeted her politely, unaware that every step she took was calculated. She entered the executive lounge, where her father sat reading financial reports. Richard looked up, smiling warmly. "You handled the auction well," he said. "Celeste told me there was a misunderstanding, but you defused it perfectly." Evelyn forced a faint smile. "Just doing my part." He nodded approvingly, then added, "She was upset, though. You might want to apologize." The words stung more than they should have. Even now, he couldn't see through Celeste's lies. Evelyn studied him, the man who once sacrificed her future to save another's child. "Of course, I'll talk to her." As she turned to leave, he said softly, "You're too hard on yourself, Evie. You always were." That name, Evie, used to comfort her. Now it made her skin crawl. Outside, she leaned against the wall, closing her eyes briefly. "You'll see, Father. When this ends, you'll understand what your love cost me." Her reflection in the glass seemed to smirk back, colder than she remembered.
Later that day, she met Damien at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a relic from his family's old empire before the downfall. Rain seeped through holes in the roof, pooling on the cracked floor. He stood by a broken window, cigarette smoke curling in the air. "You look tired," he said. "You should rest before the next step." Evelyn gave a dry laugh. "Rest is for people who aren't being watched." She showed him the video message. His eyes darkened. "This wasn't random," he said. "That angle, it came from a surveillance feed, either your penthouse or somewhere connected to her network." "Celeste's security," Evelyn confirmed. "I thought the same." Damien crushed the cigarette beneath his shoe. "Then you can't go back there tonight." She folded her arms. "If I don't, she'll know I'm scared." He smiled faintly. "You think fear is weakness?" "No," she replied softly. "I think it's fuel." He stepped closer, voice low. "Then let it burn wisely." The air between them thickened. Unspoken history, half-trust, and something dangerous neither dared to name. Evelyn turned away first. "Find Ethan Cross. If he's alive, he's our key." By evening, Mira had sent over data, names, locations, movement patterns. One stood out, E. Cross, private contractor, listed under Kingsley Global Security. The files were encrypted, but Mira's message was blunt. He's active and close. Evelyn's pulse quickened. She checked the timestamp on his latest assignment. It matched the night she met Mira at the cafe. He'd been tailing her. "So it's him," she murmured, gripping her phone. But as she prepared to leave, another message flashed across the screen. "If you want answers, come alone. Level 13, Old Meridian Hotel, midnight. No sender ID, no trace." She considered it carefully. Every instinct screamed trap, but sometimes the only way to catch a shadow was to step into the dark. At midnight, she arrived. The hotel was a corpse of its former glory, broken chandeliers, peeling wallpaper, the stench of dust and memory. Her heels echoed as she climbed to the 13th floor. When she reached the corridor, the lights flickered once, then steadied. A door creaked open at the end of the hall. A familiar voice spoke softly. "You've been busy, Miss Kingsley."
Ethan Cross stepped out of the shadows, older, colder, and exactly as she remembered him before her death. "You shouldn't be alive," she whispered. His mouth curved faintly. "Funny, I was about to say the same." The world tilted for a moment. "You remember," she said, her voice barely audible. He nodded slowly. "Every mistake, every betrayal, every fire Celeste started." He moved closer, his gaze unreadable. "I don't work for her anymore." Evelyn narrowed her eyes. "Then who do you work for?" He stopped inches away. "For whoever brings her down." Her breath caught. "Why tell me this?" His expression softened, almost human. "Because the last time you trusted the wrong people. I won't let that happen again." Before she could respond, the lights flickered again, and he was gone. Only a silver lighter lay on the floor, engraved with her initials. Evelyn stared at it, trembling. 2 souls reborn. 2 ghosts of the same past. She looked toward the dark window, voice barely a whisper. If the dead are returning, then Celeste's empire isn't built on power. Her eyes hardened. It's built on borrowed time.
The Kingsley mansion slept under layers of silence and money. Even the walls seemed to whisper secrets of deals made, of lies told. Evelyn walked through the dim hallway, past family portraits painted to hide the rot beneath the gold. Her mother's smile from a decade ago stared back at her, warm, unknowing. Her father had replaced that warmth long ago with Celeste's glittering shadow. She was here for one reason, the safe in his private study, the one she hadn't been allowed near since she was 16. The key wasn't the problem, the code was. But she remembered the rhythm of his hands from childhood, the way he'd tap his fingers while unlocking it. He never knew she was watching then. Tonight, she would use that memory against him. As thunder rumbled beyond the windows, Evelyn slipped inside the study. The scent of old whiskey and cedar filled the air. The city lights stretched through the glass walls like ghostly fingers. "You built an empire on betrayal," she whispered, kneeling before the safe. "Let's see what it cost you." She entered the code, each click loud enough to make her heart race. When the lock was released, a soft metallic hiss broke the silence. Inside were files, ledgers, and a velvet box. She opened it to find a pearl necklace, one she remembered her mother wearing the night she left. Beneath it lay a stack of documents labeled Trust Transfer, Adrian Kingsley. Her throat tightened. He'd already signed half the company into Adrian's name, just like before. But this time she found something new. A sealed envelope marked Confidential, Wolf Holdings, Damien's name. She unfolded it carefully, revealing an unsigned merger draft dated 3 weeks from now. So this was never about saving the company, it's about ownership. The plan was clear. Celeste would push her father into merging Kingsley Corp with Wolf International under Damien's signature, only to collapse it from within and redirect the assets offshore. Evelyn's hands trembled. She could almost hear Celeste's laughter echoing through the halls, cruel and satisfied. Then a faint creak broke the moment, footsteps on the marble behind her.
"Looking for something, sweetheart?" Celeste's voice slithered through the darkness. Evelyn turned, her expression unreadable. The woman stood at the doorway in a silk robe, a glass of red wine in her hand, like she'd been expecting this. "Couldn't sleep," Evelyn said calmly. "Neither could I," Celeste replied. "Funny how guilt keeps people awake." She took a slow sip, her eyes gleaming. "You think you're clever, sneaking into your father's study. But you forget, I built this house with him. Every secret inside these walls is mine." Evelyn smiled, faintly. "Including the ones about these stolen accounts?" Celeste's expression didn't waver, but her knuckles tightened around the glass. "Careful, darling. You don't know what you're playing with." Evelyn stepped closer. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm playing with. I just stopped pretending it's a game." Celeste's smile returned, softer this time. "Then you'll end up just like your mother." Evelyn froze. "What did you just say?" Celeste's tone turned almost affectionate. "You never wondered, did you, how she really died?" The words hung in the air, heavy as thunder. Evelyn's chest constricted. "You're lying," she whispered. Celeste set down the glass on her father's desk, her voice low and calm. "Am I?" "She didn't die from illness, Evelyn. She found out about the offshore accounts, about Richard's affair. She was going to expose everything." Celeste's smile sharpened. "But accidents happen. Cars crash. Brakes fail." For a moment the room tilted. The chandelier's reflection in the glass fractured like her heartbeat. "You killed her. You killed her, and he covered it up." Celeste tilted her head. "He covered it up to protect Adrian. You see, your father's love for that boy was boundless. You were just collateral." Evelyn's vision blurred, rage pulsing through her veins, but she stayed still, controlled. "You shouldn't have told me that," she said softly. "Why not?" Celeste taunted. "Because now I don't just want to take back what's mine." Evelyn's eyes burned with quiet fury. "I want to bury you with it." Celeste laughed, genuinely amused. "Oh, darling, try."
Then she walked out, her perfume lingering like poison.
Evelyn stood alone in the dim study, her body trembling as memories flooded in. The car wreck, the funeral, her father's distant eyes. Every piece finally fit. Celeste hadn't just stolen her place, she'd stolen her mother's life to make room for her own. Evelyn looked down at the confidential envelope, her mind sharpening through the pain. This wasn't just revenge anymore, it was justice. She burned the Wolf merger draft, watching the flames eat away the paper. "You took everything from her," she whispered, "but I'll take everything from you." Then she lifted her phone and sent a message to Damien. "Change of plan. They killed my mother. We start tonight." Outside, the rain stopped. The city shimmered, washed clean for a moment that wouldn't last. Evelyn turned off the lights and left the room in silence, the necklace still resting inside the open safe, a ghost of the woman who'd loved too gently. But Evelyn was not gentle anymore. The daughter they sacrificed had returned from the ashes, and this time she would not forgive.
The city glittered like a living beast that night, every window a glowing eye, every shadow a heartbeat. Evelyn stood on the rooftop of a luxury apartment building downtown, wind slicing through her hair, phone pressed to her ear. "You're sure you're ready for this?" Damien's voice came through, low, steady, dangerous. "I was born ready," she replied. Below, black sedans lined the private entrance of Celeste's gala, an event celebrating Kingsley Corp's new global partnership. In reality, it was the final step before the merger. If Celeste succeeded, she would own not just the company, but Evelyn's father, body and soul. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Tonight, she loses everything. Damien's plan was simple but lethal. Leak Celeste's offshore records to the press and force her to defend herself publicly, while Evelyn exposed the forged contracts inside the Kingsley vault. "Once this starts," Damien warned, "you can't turn back." Evelyn's tone was ice. "I'm not here to turn back." She ended the call, slipped her earpiece into place, and descended the stairwell. The hunt had begun. And tonight, the wolves weren't hiding in the dark. They were walking straight into the light. Inside the gala, luxury dripped from every corner. Crystal chandeliers, gold-plated decor, and a string quartet playing soft jazz beneath an art installation shaped like a phoenix. Evelyn walked in wearing a sleek black gown, hair pinned, lips the color of war. People turned to look, whispering her name. She smiled faintly, let them talk. Across the room, Celeste shone in silver, radiant and venomous, holding Adrian's arm like a trophy. Her father stood nearby, oblivious to the storm gathering beneath the surface. "Evelyn," Celeste greeted sweetly, eyes like polished knives. "So glad you came." "I wouldn't miss it," Evelyn replied, her tone sugar-laced steel. Cameras flashed as they exchanged kisses on the cheek. To anyone watching, they were the picture of elegance. But behind their smiles, one truth pulsed between them. Only one of them would leave this night untarnished. Celeste leaned closer. "Your mother would be proud. Shame she's not here to see what you've become." Evelyn met her gaze. "Oh, she's watching, and she's not proud of you." Celeste's expression flickered for half a second before she turned away. The first crack in her mask.
Upstairs, Damien was already moving. Dressed in a black tux and earpiece, he slipped into the security control room, disabling the surveillance feeds with a practiced hand. "Feeds down in 60 seconds, he whispered. "You're clear." Evelyn moved through the hall toward her father's private office, the same one where Celeste had stored her most valuable secrets. Mira's hacking system on Evelyn's phone displayed a countdown. She had 10 minutes before the external alarm reactivated. She found the wall safe behind a false panel of artwork, entered the code she'd memorized, and retrieved a hidden folder marked Account Transfer Records. Inside were digital certificates, proof Celeste had transferred millions through fake charities under Adrian's signature. Evelyn snapped photos, uploading them to Damien's network. "Got it," she murmured. "Send it live." Seconds later, the ballroom's massive LED screen, meant to display company highlights, glitched. The soft music faltered. Then rows of numbers filled the screen. Offshore accounts, names, dates. Celeste's face froze mid-smile as gasps filled the hall. "What is this?" Richard demanded, confusion clouding his voice. Evelyn stepped onto the platform, every eye turning toward her. "It's the truth," she said, voice steady and cutting through the chaos. "These are Celeste Kingsley's offshore accounts, built from stolen company funds and fake charities. Every cent of this empire's decay leads back to her." Celeste's eyes flared, but she recovered instantly, turning to the crowd. "This is absurd. She's trying to destroy our family because she couldn't stand losing her inheritance." Evelyn smiled faintly. "You mean the inheritance you took from my mother before arranging her death?" The crowd gasped. Richard's face went pale. "Evelyn, stop," he said, his voice shaking. "But she didn't. She killed my mother, and you covered it up to protect her son." For a moment, the room felt utterly silent. Then Celeste laughed, a brittle, desperate sound. "You have no proof." Evelyn held up her phone, pressing play. The speakers filled with an audio recording, Celeste's voice from the night she confronted her in the study. "Cars crash. Brakes fail." Richard stumbled backward, disbelief washing over him like acid. Celeste's mask shattered completely. "You think this will save you?" she hissed. Evelyn stepped closer. "No," she said softly. "It will free me."
Security guards surged forward as chaos erupted. Reporters shouted questions, flashes exploded like gunfire. Celeste tried to flee, but Damien appeared at the door, blocking her path, his expression cold. "You're done," he said quietly. Adrian lunged toward Evelyn, but she sidestepped, letting him crash into the podium. "You ruined everything!" he shouted. "No," she said calmly, "you ruined yourself." Police sirens wailed outside. Mira had already tipped them off. Within minutes, officers stormed the gala, cuffing Celeste as she screamed curses that echoed through the glass walls. Richard stood frozen, watching his empire crumble. "Evie?" he whispered, broken. Evelyn turned toward him, tears glimmering in her eyes, but no warmth remained. "I'm not your Evie anymore," she said. "I'm the daughter you sacrificed." Then she walked past him, her heels clicking like a verdict. Outside, rain began to fall again, washing the streets clean. Damien caught up beside her. "It's over," he said. She shook her head. "No, it's only beginning." They stood beneath the city's burning lights, two survivors in the storm. The wolves had hunted, and tonight they'd tasted victory.
Morning came with silence, the kind that follows ruin. News networks flooded every screen with headlines. Celeste Kingsley arrested for corporate fraud. Wolf International withdraws partnership. Kingsley Empire faces collapse. The world Evelyn had been cast out of was now burning, and she'd lit the match herself. She stood on the balcony of her penthouse, wind curling her hair, phone buzzing with non-stop calls from journalists and shareholders. Below, reporters swarmed the gates of Kingsley Tower, shouting questions that sliced through the cold air. But Evelyn felt nothing. Not victory, not regret, only emptiness. The war was ending, yet her chest felt hollow. She'd expected triumph to taste like freedom. Instead, it tasted like ashes. Then her screen flashed with a new message. "Meet me at the manor. He deserves the truth." The sender's name made her still. Damien Wolfe. The one man she trusted to stand between her and chaos. She slipped her phone into her coat and left without another word. The Kingsley mansion waited, and with it, the man who had given her everything, yet seen nothing at all. When Evelyn entered the old estate, the air was thick with the scent of decay and whiskey. Her father sat in his study, the same room where she had discovered the truth. The curtains were drawn, dust floating like ghosts in the dim light. He didn't look up when she entered. "You destroyed us," he said quietly, voice trembling. "No, father," she replied, her tone steady. "I destroyed her. You just hid behind her lies." He turned then, eyes red-rimmed, face lined with exhaustion. "You think this fixes anything? Do you know what they're saying about me? About Adrian? That's the price of your silence. You taught me to protect the family name no matter the cost, but I won't die for your mistakes." His voice cracked. "She loved us in her own way." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "She loved power. You loved pretending it was love." He slumped into the chair, defeated. "So, what happens now?" Evelyn looked at the portrait of her late mother above the fireplace, eyes softening. "Now," she whispered, "we start telling the truth."
She placed a folder on his desk, the real financial records, the ones that could save the company if handled right. "You'll sign it over to the board. Step down as CEO," she said. "They'll stabilize what's left." Richard looked up, shocked. "And you?" "I don't want it," she said simply. "Not the company, not the crown. I only wanted her to fall." His hands trembled as he reached for the papers. "I never meant for any of this, Evie." She shook her head. "You meant for everything that kept you comfortable." His tears came quietly, and for the first time she didn't turn away. The man before her wasn't the titan she'd grown to hate. He was just a broken father staring at the ruin of his choices. "If I could take it back," he began, but she stopped him gently. "You can't. None of us can. But you can still choose what happens next." He nodded weakly, signing the documents with shaking hands. As the pen scratched across the paper, Evelyn felt something heavy loosen inside her. Not forgiveness, but release. Outside, Damien waited by his car, watching as the Kingsley crest was removed from the mansion gates. He looked up when Evelyn appeared, her expression unreadable. "Is it done?" he asked. "It's over," she said softly. "He's giving up the company." "And Celeste?" "Facing charges in 3 countries. She won't see daylight for years." He nodded, studying her face. "Then why don't you look relieved?" Evelyn stared at the horizon, where the city skyline shimmered through the morning haze. "Because I thought revenge would feel like peace." Damien stepped closer. "Peace isn't built on ashes," he said. "It's built on what you do after." For a moment, she wanted to believe him, to let the fire inside her finally rest. But part of her still burned. "You think I can rebuild?" she asked. "You already have," he said quietly. "You didn't just survive them, Evelyn. You outlived them." The wind caught her hair, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. Maybe this was what freedom really felt like. Not victory, but the ability to walk away. As she turned to leave, a sleek black car pulled up beside Damien's. The door opened, and Ethan Cross stepped out, alive, expression unreadable. "You kept your word," he said to Damien. Evelyn froze. "You two knew?" Damien's jaw tightened. "He helped me track Celeste's network. I didn't tell you because you didn't trust me," she finished, voice sharp. Ethan stepped forward. "You did what I couldn't," he said softly. "You ended her." She studied him for a moment, then nodded once. "Then we're even."
He looked at her for a long time. No, we're bound. Before she could respond, he handed her a sealed envelope. This isn't over. Someone higher than Celeste was pulling the strings. Evelyn's breath caught. Who? He smiled faintly. That's for your next war. Then he turned and disappeared into the morning fog. Evelyn opened the envelope. Inside, a single photo. Her mother, standing beside a man she'd never seen before, holding hands under a Kingsley banner. Her blood ran cold. Damien touched her shoulder. Evelyn? She looked up, eyes blazing again. No, she said quietly. It's not over yet.
Rain fell softly over the city that morning, the kind that blurred light into silver. Evelyn sat in her car outside an old countryside estate, the address printed on the back of the photo Ethan had given her. It had taken a single phone call to confirm what she feared. The man beside her mother in that picture wasn't just anyone. He was Henry Wolfe, Damien's father. The revelation cut deep. The Kingsleys and the Wolves had been rivals for decades, but this changed everything. So the woman you lost was my mother, she whispered to herself. The pieces fit now. The secret investments, the arranged partnerships, the betrayal that had spiraled into ruin. Love and greed had collided long before Evelyn was born. She stepped out of her car, rain soaking through her coat, and approached the front door. It opened before she could knock. Damien stood there, eyes shadowed with disbelief. You shouldn't have come here, he said quietly. She held up the photo. You knew, didn't you? His silence said enough. Our parents built this war, she said softly. We just finished it.
They stood in the grand, empty hall of the old Wolfe estate, dust swirling in beams of pale light. She was the only thing he loved that wasn't power, Damien said at last. When your father took her away, he destroyed both families. Evelyn looked around at the faded portraits, her voice trembling. So everything we've done, every deal, every fight, it all began with them? Damien nodded. The Kingsleys and Wolfes were never enemies, just broken reflections of the same sin. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy but human. Two children of greed, standing in the ruins their parents left behind. Finally, Evelyn asked, "What now?" Damien met her eyes. Now, we choose who we become without them. She wanted to believe that. To believe there was a life after revenge, after ghosts. You could rebuild. With what's left of your father's holdings, with the board's trust, you could start clean. Evelyn gave a faint smile. I don't want his legacy. I want my own. Damien's voice softened, then started here, with truth, not ashes.
Weeks passed. The world moved on, but whispers remained. Celeste's trial dominated the headlines, her screams captured by flashing cameras as she was sentenced. Adrian fled the country, his accounts frozen, his name stripped from the company registry. Richard Kingsley resigned officially, retreating into isolation, his empire dismantled piece by piece. But Evelyn, she rose quietly from the wreckage. Using the remaining assets, she founded the Kingsley Foundation, an organization dedicated to protecting women from financial exploitation and corporate abuse. For those who were silenced by power, the mission statement read. When she stood before the press, she didn't speak of revenge. She spoke of renewal. And when reporters asked about her father, her voice was steady. He taught me what happens when silence protects the wrong people, she said, and what it costs to speak the truth. Behind the cameras, Damien watched from a distance, pride hidden behind his stoic gaze.
He knew she didn't need saving anymore. She'd become something greater than vengeance. She'd become her mother's justice.
That evening, Evelyn visited the cemetery for the first time in years. The air smelled of wet grass and stone. Her mother's grave was simple, weathered by time. She knelt beside it, tracing her fingers over the carved name. "I found him," she whispered. "The man you loved, the one who started it all." Her voice broke. "And I forgave him. Not for him, but for you." She placed a single white rose on the grave. The wind stirred gently, carrying the faint scent of rain and memory. Behind her, soft footsteps approached. Damien stopped a few paces away, his coat dark with drizzle. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, without turning. "Neither did I," he replied. They stood in silence, the kind that heals rather than hurts. "I was right," she murmured. "Peace isn't built on ashes." He smiled faintly. "So, what's next for Evelyn Kingsley?" She looked up at the horizon, where dawn was breaking. "A new name," she said quietly. "One that isn't tied to blood or betrayal." He nodded. "Then let me walk beside you, whatever name you choose."
The world began again in the weeks that followed. Evelyn sold the last of her father's estates and used the funds to rebuild what had been lost, not the company, but the people. The employees laid off during Celeste's reign were reinstated under fair wages. The mansion was converted into a shelter for women, escaping corporate manipulation and domestic control. The city that once whispered her family's shame now spoke her name with respect. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Evelyn stood on the terrace of her new foundation headquarters, overlooking the city that had once broken her. Damien approached, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "To new beginnings?" he asked. She smiled softly, clinking her cup against his. "To watching them fall and learning to rise." The wind carried laughter through the night, light and unburdened. For the first time, Evelyn felt peace, not the kind that comes from victory, but from closure. Her mother's necklace gleamed faintly beneath her collar, a quiet reminder. The daughter they sacrificed had rewritten her fate, and this time she was the heir of her own ashes, her own dawn.